Can someone get the door?
Jay.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe scoot some of the chairs over.
Someone can sound
Circle
the well,
here.
chairs, so we can move the chairs, make some more room.
Yeah, there's also room for one of the smaller chairs over here. You can grab that one.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi everyone, my name is Deepti. I'm the president of Duke Disability Alliance. Lots of new faces today, so this is exciting. So before we just get into all the stuff for today, I was just wondering we could do a little icebreaker introductions as usual. So I was just wondering, like, what are you guys looking forward to this week, or what's something good that happened in the past week? Hi, Maddie. So I'll start. This past week, I went to Me Too Monologues, which was really powerful and impactful, and I hope all of you guys were able to go too, but if not, definitely please make it a point to go next year. And this week, I'm looking forward to the Duke UNC game. Finally, that something will be worth it. But yeah.
I'm Simon. Last week, I had fun, went to a jazz concert here at the Duke Jazz Ensemble. They're really cool. And then Vietnamese ball was really fun. Highly recommend. And this week, also looking forward to the UNC game, though I didn't attend, but I'll watch on TV. And
Your bench burn.
yeah, and that too. And yeah, it's like that's it.
Okay, hi, I'm Simran. I guess a good thing about last week was, just yesterday tenting finished. In terms of this week, yeah, also the UNC game, but also my dad might be coming, so if that's good.
Yay!
To the UNC game or just here?
Oh no, just here on Friday.
I'm Alexander. Last week I played in the Duke Jazz Ensemble for the concert.
Oh,
Oh,
what do you
wow.
play?
The piano.
Oh, you're the pianist? Oh, wow.
And then this week, a couple of my friends and I are going to a restaurant on Friday, so it's fun.
Oh, which restaurant?
I'm Michaela. Last week I finished all my midterms, which is good.
Yay!
I went to the NC State game, which was fun. And I guess this week I'm excited about the UNC game too.
Yeah, I'm Jay. So I guess the thing about me is I'm pretty tired. I haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep these past 2 weeks, so I'm looking forward to hopefully getting more sleep. But
I'm Steph. I would say yesterday I was in Virginia Beach for the weekend, and I completed a half marathon in Williamsburg in the rain and cold. It was the first half marathon I've done in weather like that. So that was a high point. Another high point, we have Duke Student Veterans, which I'm a part of, and the Center of Leadership. We have a table out for 2 weeks by the Duke store to write letters to veteran justice participants and VA medical patients and basic trainees. And our goal was 250 letters, and we reached 70 last week. So we're really going to meet that goal. So people are participating, so we're really happy about that, and that was a high point of our program.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I haven't been here in a while, but I'm back.
Yay! We missed you.
I had a lot of fun at the NC State game yesterday. That was like my high last week. And then this week I'm excited because my mom's coming to visit me on Saturday. I'm going to have lunch with her, so that'll be fun.
I'm Allison. My high point of last week was after a long struggle, I found an advisor for my thesis, so that was a big weight off my chest. And then this week I'm looking forward to Duke UNC.
Hi guys, my name's Amin. Looking forward to Duke UNC also, but I feel like that's a common theme. And, last week was fun. Me Too was great. We finished our last show, so yeah.
I'm Marion. I guess a highlight of my past week was I finished writing my TED Talk for the thing next week. I'll be talking about this group, so hopefully you can all come. Yeah, and I guess this coming week I'm looking forward. I am looking forward to those tents not being there anymore, so I can go to the gym and not feel like I'm like intruding on people's like personal space. It's a really strange place to go as a professor. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm also looking forward to the TED event and that being over. So.
I'm Maddie, and one thing I enjoyed last week was going to the Viennese ball last night. It was really fun. And one thing I'm looking forward to this week is getting over this cold that I've had for like the past 3 weeks. Hopefully it'll be done this week, I'm hoping.
I'm Daphne. I also haven't been able to come too often to these meetings this semester, but hopefully after this I will. Let's see, the high point of last week was I discovered acorn squash. I'd never eaten acorn squash, and apparently it's an amazing vegetable, so yeah, that was my high point. And what I'm looking forward to this week, I had to check my calendar for this, which is depressing, but I'm hosting a drum circle on Thursday if anyone's interested, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be at the Wellness Center, so if you have time, please come up.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I've never been here before. I'm just here to promote a club that I'm in, but I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I went to Me Too Monologues, which was amazing, and I also went to the Viennese ball yesterday, so that was really fun. And then I'm looking forward to being done with the midterm that I have on Friday that I'm a little worried about, but this week it'll be done.
Yes. Okay, now you can promote your club.
Okay. Hi. So I'm the treasurer for a club called the Writers Collective, and we're kind of a newer club that started last year, but we started sort of to promote more of a literary culture on campus, because we felt like there were a lot of writers, but they weren't talking to each other, and they weren't meeting each other, and we were all just kind of writing in our dorms by ourselves, which is kind of sad. So we wanted to create a club to kind of foster a more social atmosphere for writers. So we've also been contacting identity-based clubs like DDA because we feel like identity and art and creative writing is really intertwined. So, you know, anyone can write, and that's just something that we're excited about. But, so in terms of what we do and what we have to offer is, we have a website, dukewriterscollective.org, that you can go on and submit your writing to, and we have some editors on our exec team that will provide you with some feedback for your writing. I guess more of incentive for that, you can be like a formal editor on, like for the Writers Collective, if you go onto our website and critique 3 pieces, because you can also submit your own critiques. And if you submit 3 of your own works and critique 1 piece, you can be a formal writer. And then we also have monthly events. Like this month we have a workshop that's coming up, and we have bi-weekly critique sessions where you can just come in, and our editors will look at whatever you're working on and provide you with feedback. There's usually food at those as well, so.
When and where are those meetings?
Those are usually on Saturdays from 4 to 6, and we can send out information with our listserv. And if you'd like to be on that listserv, you can contact me. My name is Lucy. I can give you guys my emails later. Yeah, so this is our website. If you go under submit, it'll give you the options to submit types of works for prose or poetry. Yeah, and then this is for our workshop. We have a workshop coming up on the 26th with Hannah Vanderhart, who's our current sponsor. She's an amazing poet. I went to one of her workshops last year and it was really great. So would recommend. It's gonna be on like flash fiction, like short pieces.
So what kind of writing can we submit to the collective?
Prose and poetry, ideally creative writing. Move over.
Thanks, Lucy. Is there anything else we should know / find before?
I think I got the gist of it, but if you have questions, you can contact me. My email or net ID is lz140 at duke.edu. But yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Lucy. Now,
That sounds so awesome.
yeah. Allison and Amin, you guys want to tell us about Me Too Monologues podcast?
Yeah, sure. So if you don't know, Me Too Monologues is an annual show of identity-based monologues written and performed by the Duke community. They're anonymous, and then other actors perform them. So we just wrapped up our show today, but we also have a podcast that we work on as well, and the whole point of the podcast is to keep conversation going. So we pick some of the most powerful pieces from the show, and then we invite different student groups or individuals on campus who work on the issues that are raised in the monologue to talk about what they do on campus related to that. And so if any of y'all saw the show, our closing piece this year was about disability. It was written by a man with one hand, and so he talked about his experience on Duke campus with that. So we wanted to reach out and see if anyone wanted to be involved in the conversation when we include these on the podcast, to promote any initiatives that y'all are working on campus, anything that y'all have experienced or want to share with a broader audience, or anything that we can help y'all pub. Basic gist, yeah.
Great. So when are you guys planning on like making these podcasts / when should we reach out to you by if we want to be involved?
It's pretty flexible, honestly. So like, just pretty much like what works with your availability. We have like multiple of us that can record, and we can like fit in some time. Usually we can do like most of the days of the week, right?
Mm-hmm. Most of the days. We have a number of pieces in the works since we just finished the show, so we want this one to be one of our first ones released.
Yeah.
And so just whenever anyone would be available or interested in talking to us, we can make it work.
Right. It's a pretty tame process too. Like I think like
very laid back.
Yeah, it's like it'll take like about 20 to 30 minutes of your time total. So it's not too time extensive or anything like that. We just love your perspectives or any like thoughts and opinions that y'all might have.
To put anyone on the spot, but is anyone interested right off the bat? It's okay if you don't want to speak now.
Yeah, definitely not.
If you do end up thinking about it and wanting to just talk about like what y'all have done on campus, or like if y'all have any upcoming events, even if you don't want to talk about it, we'd love to include that in our pub for the podcast to make sure that people know about it.
Right.
But you can contact me or Armin, either one of us. I'm Allison. My net ID is AEM90, and so you can email me anything.
Would it be helpful if we like provided y'all with like the physical monologue itself?
We'd be happy to send that to y'all too, so y'all can listen and see if that's something you want to talk about.
That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll send that to you tonight.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for everything you guys do with Me Too Monologues. It's really impactful.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Let's dive in. The task force updates really quickly. Yes. So, good point. Let's go over that. Or actually, are we still waiting on
Kevin? I think we should just go ahead.
Okay.
Kevin is not coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, his girl is.
Oh, right.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, you told me.
So for those of you who don't know, we've decided to kind of restructure the leadership / I guess overall structure of Duke Disability Alliance. So we kind of started off with like typical exec roles like president, vice president, secretary, accessibility chair, advocacy chair, and we still have that underlying framework, but we also decided to split up into task forces where groups of people within the club could focus on different projects or initiatives and more closely, and people can be part of different task forces. There's no limit to that, but the main ones that we have like right now are focused on the Disability Cultural Center, which is focused on creating a physical space on campus for the disability community, and this is in conjunction with the People State of the University group. And then we also have one for the American Sign Language Club, which Simran is a part of and leading. And that is more devoted to collaborating with the American Sign Language Club to bring an ASL curriculum to Duke, because right now it is not offered formally as a language or even linguistic class option. And right now the club has some like informal classes going on, but it's not part of like the broader Duke curriculum, which is eventually our long-term goal of what we want to initiate. And then there's another one on accessible mapping, which is in collaboration with Manish Kumar, who is part of DSG, and Trent is also working on that. And the focus on that project is to create to create a 3D map of the accessible places on campus, starting with West Union / Broadhead Center, this place so we could highlight like the accessible entrances or the inaccessible parts of this building in a very like tactile 3D map that could be like printed at the collab. Conference that Marianne is organizing. It is on April 25th and 26th, which I'm not mistaken is like the first 2 days of reading period, but it is I would highly encourage all of you guys to attend if you can. It's a jam-packed event with a lot of great events, with a lot of great people. The keynote speaker is Leonard Davis, who is one of the most like well-renowned activists and writers in the disability community. And then there's also a collaboration going on with the Body Banter Club, where we're trying to host a panel discussion during Disability Pride Week about body image and disability and different identity markers. So yeah, that was kind of a quick summary of all the task forces. There's meant to be a little more short-term focus, so like we have a set like goal to reach by the end of the semester, but they also have like underlying long-term motivations, like getting the disability community space or establishing an ASL curriculum. So that's what we've been working on for the past like 2 weeks or so. So I just wanted to ask if there are any updates from anyone, and if any of you guys are interested in joining them, you can say so now or let me know later, and we'll add you to the appropriate group chats.
So with the accessibilities mapping, I was talking with Manish, and one of the things that he's still deciding to do is how he wants to make the map 3D. The other thing is I also sent him over to the collab, put him in touch with my boss and a couple of my coworkers there. And for the most part, we can easily scale up and make a 3D model of it if we print it, if we don't want it to be, say, injection molded or CNC milled. But it ultimately depends on how he wants to do it, so we're just waiting for that decision. And in terms of having it done, I can probably do most of the CAD rendering myself, although if he wants it really complicated, then he's going to get DSG funding to get people that are much better than me for the job. That's basically about it. So just making a decision on how he wants to do it, plus simplifying floor plans, because the ones that he has currently shared with me are not really ideal and conducive into turning into a 3D model.
I know they did go to West Union on Thursday.
Yeah.
Had 2 people go and mark features on the map, so they are going and like looking at like where are the accessibility features, like which doors have ADOs, things like that. So they're gonna have a map that has those marked.
Do you guys think there would be any benefit to like reaching out to DSDAC, which is like the Duke Student Undergraduate Dining Advisory Committee? They kind of deal more with like the actual food that's offered on campus, but they're also very familiar with like how the dining spaces are constructed. Like for example, right now, a couple of weeks ago, they were discussing plans on expanding Pitchforks or Cafe Edens in London. So do you think they would have floor plans, or is there?
So I think we have the basic floor plans, but I think what we're trying to do now is mark the accessibility features in a clear way that they aren't necessarily marked now, and then also simplify some of the floor plans. Like I think I was talking about last week, what like the basement, the floor G of West Union has like all the kitchen space that no one goes into, so we don't really need that on the final map that we would use. So like trying to get rid of that stuff as well.
And also like scaling. Do you want it to make it a 1-to-1 ratio? That if you wanted a map the size of this table for each floor, then where are you going to put all of this? And also
a glass box for it. Sorry.
And the other thing is how would and for example, if we have say accessible doors, for example, that are marked around West Union, how would you render that into a 3D object? No? So that's some of the things we're trying to figure out. But that's about it.
How's the idea behind making it 3D to make it accessible for people with visual impairments?
Mhm.
Okay. So is it going to incorporate Braille at all, or no?
That's what I asked. That's what I asked him when he was in here, and he says he was working with the professor to determine whether Braille was suitable for it. It would be really easy to incorporate it.
Yeah. Do you know which professor? Is it Dan Ellison?
I don't recall. Do any of you?
I think he did meet with somebody. Let me see if I could. I do have the
Because
notes.
Dan reached out to me saying that Manish had reached out to him. So
It's probably.
I mean, I think what they're trying to reach out to everybody.
Yeah.
So, let me see, because there was somebody that.
I like how it's like the reaching out circle.
I know.
It's like wow.
Oh, so he did meet with somebody. I'm not really sure who this person is. Dr. Malekam, M-A-L-E-P-A-M.
Oh, DeHanger. Yeah, he's in the history department.
Oh yeah, so it looks like Manish went with him, and then and he had mentioned that the Duke Eye Center might have an organization connected to people who are blind. Like I think one of the issues that I raised, like not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that, at one of their meetings was that we definitely need to do a good job of making sure we're reaching out to like a diverse community of people with disabilities. So, I mean, hopefully, if they can get in touch with some people who might actually use the tactile map, I think that.
Yeah, I think that's where Dan can help because he does a lot of work with those communities.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah.
So getting their input on what they would want in a tactile map would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything to report on ASL?
Yeah, so for ASL, I don't know, like I wasn't at the last meeting, but I went to the I just met with like a few students and they were hosting this thing. I think it was your students, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were hosting this thing where I kind of just went and like talked to them about the need for ASL. And a lot of them were interested in joining the club. I don't know if any of them reached out to you.
Yeah, some of them came last week.
Because I told them to contact you to join the club. And I just like taught them a little bit of ASL, just like the bits that I do know. But I'm collaborating with Bailey. She's the president of the ASL club, and so we're gonna work together to move that forward. But I needed to find out who was interested in that because we don't have a group me yet. And so either we can like send that out in the email with my number or my email, and then we can do that, and we can start when like this meeting, and then move forward with that. But
group me for
the ASL task force.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I also talked to some people in DSG, and they said that they're bringing it up again because apparently like the issue died down over winter break because like people weren't working on it, and so I talked to them, and they're bringing it back up in DSG. So.
Great. And for that, since you're new to exec, it's like welcome, right? There's I don't know if you've had like your exec like orientation yet, but for the new people, we have like a Google Drive with all kinds of documents and stuff that you have access to. And in there's a folder for ongoing activism. And in that folder, there is a bunch of work on ASL that some of my students did for my class last semester. They wrote this really long, really detailed, really beautiful white paper on why Duke specifically should have ASL. And so that should be really useful if you can share that with DSG.
Yeah, I bet, yeah, okay.
So yeah, if you can't find that, just email me and I'll
find it. Awesome. Yeah. But yeah, does anyone want to join like the ASL task force? Yeah. Okay. So I guess like afterwards, after the meeting, like we can just, meet in that corner or something and just get all your numbers and start a group me for that. Yeah.
Good. And did you want to say anything about the disability conference?
Yes. So the disability conference is happening on the 25th and 26th of April, as we said, first 2 days of the reading period. And Simran is helping me work on it. Logan is helping me work on it. And I met with it's going to be in the Rubenstein Arts Center, so the Ruby. And so I met with the people at the Ruby on Friday to talk about everything, all the ways that we can make that space as accessible as possible to people with disabilities. The parking issue is going to be the most challenging because it doesn't have a designated spot, like a designated lot. It has like a few, like 2 maybe disability accessible spaces behind the building. So we're gonna have to work with like Duke Performances to try and cordon off like that whole lot for people with disabilities so that they can access the building more easily. Yeah.
I know the Nasher has, like, the Nasher's pretty close to it and it has a parking lot right next to it. I don't know if it's disability accessible.
Their accessible lot is like across the street, but it's
Oh,
more
it's a hill as
accessible
well.
to the
Oh,
Nasher. It's
okay.
not accessible to
Okay,
the Ruby.
yeah.
And the Ruby has basically a policy of telling people not to encourage,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
not to use
Yeah.
the Nasher lot. But there's a lot, like, for most people going to the conference, they'll be using probably the Campus Drive lot, which is like right across Anderson Street. So it's super close, but we might have to hire a crossing guard. I'm still working with parking and transportation on that issue. So what students can do to help with this conference, we're basically I'm looking for a team of student volunteers to actually work the conference, to actually like wear a t-shirt that's like one color so that people can identify you, kind of be stationed in a certain place so that like people with disabilities, particularly people with visual impairments, can get your help, like finding where they're going, knowing where the food is and like because we're gonna have like food that's like gluten-free, food that's like for different dietary preferences, and if people can't see, they're not gonna be able to know like what's what. So just to like narrate them that stuff and just help them find their way around, and people with mobility impairments too, and whoever else needs your help, whoever just has questions. So we're looking for like a group of volunteers to actually come to the conference and be there the whole time and like be identifiable as a student volunteer. So yeah, you guys can help me find people for that. We're also looking for students to speak on a plenary on accessible pedagogy. I've talked to Logan about this a little bit. Yeah, so it's basically just that I want there to be a session at the conference in the afternoon that is a plenary session, which means everybody from the conference has to go to it. And it's going to be the student perspective on the Duke experience and how accessible or inaccessible it is, kind of focusing on classroom practices and teaching practices and what has worked and what hasn't worked. Just to kind of give a broader concept of what access means. I think a lot of times we think of it just in terms of physical accessibility, but like when you're at a university, there's a lot of other things to consider, particularly around how people learn. So we're going to have a session on that from the student perspective, and it's going to be pretty similar, I think, to the O-Week event that we've been running the last 2 years, where a small panel of students addresses incoming freshmen about what it's like to be a student with a disability at Duke and what the process is like for getting accommodations and all that other stuff. But this time, instead of talking to incoming freshmen, you'd be speaking to the full Duke community, so that would include faculty members and administrators and staff, as well as students. So it's just a difference of audience, but I think it'd be a similar format. So yeah, we're looking for like a group of like 3 or 4 students to be actually on that panel and to be willing to just share their experiences. They don't have to like write anything in advance, but just to talk kind of openly.
Yeah, just to like say a little bit more about that. If any of you are interested at all in like participating in this plenary, like please contact either Dr. Q or me. Like he was saying, like it's not going to be where you have to make like a big speech. I think what we're thinking right now is it's sort of going to be kind of like a moderated question and answer session. And so you'd be given like the questions ahead of time, maybe to like have some brainstorming thoughts about your responses to different aspects of accessibility on campus. But we think it's really important that student voices are heard and represented from the undergraduate and possibly graduate perspective as well. So if you're interested in all and being part of that, like please contact either of us. It should be great.
So just a question, so do you know if like representatives from SDAO or like the administration, like the highest levels of the administration, like are those kinds of people going to be there, or is it just like?
Well, Lee Fickling did come to the meeting at the Ruby on Friday, so they're aware that this event is happening. Does that change like the way that you imagine this kind of event could go?
I'm just wondering how forthcoming people are going to be willing to be in the presence of those kinds of people.
Yeah.
I I mean, I think it's definitely like there's a lot of things that they need to hear.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering how that might affect what people would be willing to share.
Yeah. You know, we could reach out for insight on this. We could reach out to Jay Ruckelshaus, who organized something very similar 4 or 5 years ago. It was called Beyond Disability, Beyond Compliance, and it was like his experiences as a disabled student. He was like up there with Lee. I think she was like on the panel with him, speaking from like the administration kind of perspective. So we can kind of talk about how that felt, or like if there were things he wasn't willing to share, if he wishes that he hadn't included them. You know what I mean? And we can kind of talk about it amongst ourselves and make a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it should be whatever the students feel more comfortable with.
Right.
So.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think like, I mean, I guess because the two kinds of it, you can have like one that's definitely more collaborative, like he did, where like you're looking at like how do we move forward, and not necessarily talking about all the things that may be wrong and the things that the administration may be doing that cause harm to the students with disabilities on campus. Or you can have an event that focuses more on that sort of thing.
Right.
That's more confrontational. I think that just presents another set of challenges.
Yeah. Cool. I feel like we should see who volunteers or see who expresses interest in participating and like have a conversation amongst that group of students and try and figure out how we want to frame this.
What are DDA's financial responsibilities on here?
Yeah.
So essentially, what forms do I need to send?
Yes, I put that on the agenda. All exec has to do in terms of funding, because the Health Humanities Lab is covering pretty much everything.
But do they need to transfer any money to us, or are they going to make the purchases on their own?
They're gonna do it
Okay,
themselves.
sweet.
Yeah, so there's very little happening DDA wise. I was hoping that DDA would apply to SDAO for the ASL interpreters.
That's not.
So just this one cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what that cost will be. We'll have to figure out with the hours, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact that some of the event is like breakout sessions, so we'll have to hire like at least 4 at a time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Would it be the same ASL interpretation that we used previously?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, it would be the same company. So.
Okay. Not a problem.
Yeah, so we just have to like make a Duke group event and then go to SDAO and then fill out the forms. But you guys don't have to worry about contracts or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not gonna be as stressful as the disability in the arts thing last year.
That was fine though.
It
Alright.
was great, except for like the week before when Antoine Hunter was like, maybe I don't wanna sign this contract, and we were like.
Because it takes us forever to get a new one, to change it.
It all was great.
Yeah,
you
worked
know?
out fine.
It was just stressful in the leading up weeks.
Yeah.
We're definitely glad he came.
So
Very
AS,
glad. That was
okay.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
ASL interpretation. Got it.
Yeah, just ASL. That's the only cost, and it's going to be a significantly more expensive ASL
Than
outlay
previously.
than previous times, but it would be through the same.
Makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
Take your time. Thank you, Marianne, for all this episode. Definitely keep this in check. From Alexander about the last program. I know you have a PowerPoint, which
Yes.
right there. Yeah.
Just about the disability conference. I know Kat, like the head of the of HHL, she wanted me to see if anyone would be available on Saturday to go to Marian's TED Talk to write a blog post about it. So just because like none of us are free that weekend, we're all out of town. So if anyone can go to her TED Talk and write a blog post about it, like that would be really, really helpful. She wanted me to reach out to DDA for that.
She wants to.
Is it supposed to be?
What?
I don't think she gave you a
There's
link. It's sort of just for the Health Humanities Lab blog.
Yeah, it's just like a normal blog post, like what you would consider normal. It's obviously it's not going to be really extensive, like, but
Probably
cover the main
like
points.
less than 1,000 words.
What?
Just guessing, maybe less than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Going. I'm not sure if I can write
Have
something
time to write,
substantial
yeah.
on it.
What time is it?
It's
Well, the event is from 11:30 to 4. I think that because that's all day, right?
Yeah.
My portion is I'm supposed to be, I think, the third person to talk.
Okay.
So that would be much earlier in the day, so probably around noonish. Hope they don't change that. If they do, I'll let you guys know.
If you can tell us an exact time, that would be great, but if not,
I
it's
know.
okay.
It'd be nice. Yeah. So thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Sandra, take it away. If you also want to share your screen, I'm sorry, there's no projector in this room, but this is the only one we could.
Okay, so I just want to say thank you for you guys for having me, and then I'm just gonna talk about what the Max program is and what I plan on doing with the Max program. So this really matters. So I'm a freshman here, and I'm majoring in linguistics. So that's why I wanted to help out with this because I know a couple of faculty members and I do for languages, so I think that'd be a good fit. And so I'm from Orange County, Southern California. My mom's a middle school math teacher. My dad's an engineering CEO. I have a younger brother who's 12 who has autism, and together our families travel to 30 countries. So through that background is what the Max program evolved. So there's a couple pictures here that I have, and both of them, one in Turkey, one in Hong Kong, and he was in strollers both the time, even though he's like 80 pounds. And that's because they don't have wheelchairs with seatbelts or anything that could like restrain somebody to back to us, get up and leave. So like, I just wanted to show those pictures as sort of amenities that certain facilities could have instead of what they already have right now. So tending towards cognitive disabilities rather than rather than physical or mobile disabilities, also cognitive disabilities, which is what the Max program is. So I'm not sure how much you guys know about autism, but it's about 1 in 68 people in the US are born with autism. So that equates to around 3.5 million people with autism. And it's not just one thing that, like, for instance, the film Rain Man would show. It's more of a spectrum. So my brother's kind of in the middle. So he can say certain sentences, but he can't really convey what he wants to. And then there's some more on the severe side or the highly functioning side. So it's really a range which presents a challenge to what I want to do because it's not just like a one-size-fits-all program. It's more like how can we get as much help as we can through like such a wide variety of what we could do. So common signs you'll see is social inclusivity or social interaction or stemming behaviors. For instance, my brother likes to hand flap or like just like make certain noises at seemingly odd times, and since the community as a whole isn't too sure what autism is, they don't know or understand what autism is, they just kind of see it as like, what is he doing? He needs to stop. So a big part of the Max program is awareness and just showing education about autism, but then of course the main focus would be reaching out to facilities like hotels and having them make sort of ADA compliant facility for them. And of course the ultimate goal would be some sort of legislation. So as I said before, some people have sort of misconceptions of what autism is, and they get it from TV shows and movies, and yeah, it's kind of what I said earlier. But they don't really understand that autism is a range. They just think, oh yeah, my cousin has autism, and that kind of gives them a false idea of they know what autism is, so they kind of want to gear it towards what their interaction is. And unfortunately, since I only understand really what my brother's like, I would hope that if this scales up, I would get feedback from like what other types of autism or what kind of severities or what they would need. So right now the Max program is based more on what like the general middle of the spectrum autistic child would want. Okay, so how did it start? I reached out in California to around 15 hotels and asked them about starting a program. So when Max and we travel abroad, since they don't really know what autism is, they don't really know how to handle it, and many hotels or airports don't really have anything or they don't understand or care. So I reached out to 15 general managers of hotels and asked them, would you be willing to listen to a pitch about starting a program to make something more accessible to a big part of your clientele? Because we're in Anaheim, which is where Disneyland is. So a lot of autistic families will decide to travel to Disneyland, but that's a select few families because a lot of families just don't want to leave their home because they're scared about like what other people might think of them or how their kid might behave, and they just don't want to take that risk. So I named it the lamest thing ever, the Member of Autism Care Services, which is Max because I couldn't find anything sort of X. So what we're trying to do is not just autism, but like that was the main focus of getting sort of amenities and awareness raised to certain facilities of the travel industry to make travel more applicable or available. So we started with a hotel in Sheraton Park, which is a 500-room hotel. We pitched it to the general manager and they accepted it, and we drafted a plan. The plan consisted of specialized babysitting services for younger kids, a list of what activities are around in the area that the families travel to. And then in the hotel, they have a bunch of things that we felt autistic kids would normally avail of. And it wasn't just like our family coming up with that out of our butt. It was, we hired a behavioral health manager, CEO, and he was much more cognizant of what they actually need. So he had a meeting with all the higher ups and asked them to sit in and listen to what autism is and what each person could do, for instance, what housekeeping can do, what sort of communication can do, and what reservations and booking can do, like how they can make it a more conducive experience for families traveling with autism. So it was inaugurated in 2016. So, like I said, the facets of it, at least the first part of the Sheraton Park. So when a family calls in, they request Max program services, and they get a call back with a questionnaire like, do you want a room near an elevator, or is it okay if you want a corner room? Is he noisy? What can we do? Should we do any locks in the rooms? So that when the family comes, they know what they could expect, and the hotel could plan ahead, like we put a child protective lock on the door handle, and then have certain weighted vest blankets for sensory needs, or like a DVD player or iPad with sort of autism geared applications. So when they come in, they have a check-in time. They're going to come in, so they can be greeted, and they know they've been specifically trained on how to treat autistic children and their families. So you don't want to like baby them because they're going to feel offended, but you don't want to just treat them any other customer, because a lot of times that doesn't work, because autistic kids, whenever they come into a new environment, they just freak out because they don't know what's happening, and there's so much sensory input because they can't block out like unnecessary things. Like you guys can focus on me, but like these lights and any sort of ambient sounds just divert their attention. And so trying to rein that in and focus on the task at hand is something that needs training, and that's what we're trying to get for the travel industry. And then we had sort of specialized strollers, babysitting services, and then if requested, an ID bracelet, so in case the child runs loose, we know exactly where they who to bring them to if that needs. And then the list of autism venues and babysitting services, so the parents can get a night out and know that their child is in safe hands, not just in like a general babysitter, but one who's trained in autism. So this was a flyer, and Max refused to smile for the picture. And so it was just talking about what the Max program is and how like they could be involved or how to make use of our services. And we just recognized that the Anaheim City Council, because they finally saw that like there was a need and like, people were willing to make the first change. And so once we realized that the hotels were into it, we decided, okay, so what else could we do? So if a family was traveling from out of state, they would obviously fly in and then go to a hotel. So then we wanted to go to the airport. So our airport in Southern California is John Wayne. So we asked them, we gave a similar pitch to them, and they were pretty open to the idea, but they were more restrictive in how they wanted to do it because they had less freedom in sort of how they could implement things. And so our initial idea was to have all three facets of check-in, security, and boarding the plane taken care of by some sort of training or accessibility changes, infrastructure changes. And we pitched this idea, maybe a similar bracelet and signage. And they kind of did some of it, but not all of it. They didn't want to call it the Max program, which was a bit disappointing, but it was really just like, at least they were able to take the first step and make some sort of changes. So they had something called the Helping Hands, and eventually the Wings for Autism, to at least take a first step and show that they're becoming more aware and accommodating to more types of disability than what generally the culture thinks of as disability as only physical disability. Here, there's a speech. I don't know if you can share with all of them, but I don't want to play it now. It was just a little bit of speech introducing what the Max program is and like the steps leading up to its inauguration. All right, so this is where the current project of the Max program. So during fall break, I pitched a similar program to RDU, and they were accepting of it. And they wanted us to draft short, medium, and long-term plans and a scope for what they could do. So right now, I'm putting the finishing touches on the short-term plan and the long-term plan, because in 2020 they're having infrastructure overhaul and renovation. So I wanted to push my way into making it aware that they should or they could have more cognitively disabled services or amenities infrastructure available. Because this opportunity is pretty rare that I can get in right when there's making some big changes to the infrastructure, so we can move a little bit quicker here. So it was accepted by RDU into the planning phase. So now we're trying to assemble a team to make it happen. And I've talked to INE, Catherine Black, and Mr. Nash, Matthew Nash, and they were just extremely helpful about like what they could do. They gave me so many ideas. I didn't really know where to start, but the first thing that they really wanted me to do was start a 501(c)(3) to make it kind of a formalized plan, develop a website, and get RDU like locked in and get it moving. So this is another thing you could share. It's kind of small to have you guys all read, but this is what Michael Langduth, he was the CEO president of RDU. He made a little bit. There's an email back to me about like, how he felt after I gave the pitch. So he seemed generally interested and willing to listen and make these changes, partially because RDU is expanding from like a smaller airport to more of a global center. So he thought a good way to get started was to really push for increasing accessibility. So he was interested in both physically disabled and mentally disabled, but of course my focus would be on the mentally challenged here, cognitively disabled. So then from those projects, my goals would be to include more than just autism, because that's just my specialty, but obviously there's more that I could be doing. So getting more expertise and being more inclusive of disabilities. So the MAX program, even though it's member of Autism Care Services, is not just for ASD, it'd be for as many as we can make it for to make it as inclusive as possible, because ultimately inclusivity is the goal. So after we get RDU, and what I've been trying to do with myself is to expand to other hotels, other airports, even restaurants that could have like an autism, or for instance, many autistic children are on medication and they can't have certain foods. So restaurants would be able to cater towards them, or have certain have a DVD player with headphones that they could give the children, so they could be engaged without trying to bother other people or have other people bother them, or have certain design of a table so that they would be happy and safe without bothering others. So there's certain types of venues that we could expand to, in addition to other hotels and airports. And then I have no money. So acquire support and funding, develop, so we would need to make it a formalized program, so we need funding to push for the longer term goals, which would be sort of legislation and higher level expansion. So since I was just 15 when I started, I didn't have a voice, because a lot of them turned me down because I was too young. But now that I'm going to Duke and I have some sort of reputation as a freshman, they might be more willing to listen. So I was starting behind because I didn't have a voice. But what I mean by no voice is that ultimately we're here and we're able to talk about what we could be doing for disabled people. But a lot of mid to severe range autistic people or other cognitively disabled people can't express what they want. So the best that I can do is just see what they could need and approach it from that angle. So the problem is that we don't have a voice, they don't have a voice, so all I can do is step up for them for the mid to severe range autism. And then there are no laws, which is eventually the longest term goal, although we have ADA laws. And I saw that you guys had something Fixed by Campus for mobility disabled, but Duke might not be the best place to start because it's more of an institution of higher learning, and a lot of times autistic children or cognitively disabled people don't get to go to places like Duke. So it's more about how we could expand it in general, but that was something I thought of, that maybe Duke wouldn't be the best place to start making it, but the surrounding area, the Durham community instead. So the ultimate goal would be to adapt it and make it into a real organization that would advocate for the MAX program and be the MAX program. And to, yes, like I said, expand, and then finally to make real policy and real change on the most tangible level. Because what right now we could do is, once we get it up and running, we could have a MAX program list where we'd have certain hotels or other places that would be a part of the MAX program list, so families can search up the MAX on the website to see which companies or which venues are suitable to them, and if we can make it like lucrative enough or have like a sort of communities going behind it, then other companies would want to be on this list, and that would like create a positive feedback loop of them doing the change. So I thought that would be one way to do it, but ultimately, whether it be through like economic practices where like if they're on the list and more families will want to come, or policy, it would just be the ultimate goal would be achieved with change. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions about?
Okay, so we did talk about your program before when you first sent us that email. We do agree with you 100% that Duke is not the best place to start out with when it comes to implementing change, mainly just because it's a lot of old traditionalists that don't like to listen to students. But so we definitely think that going for the community is the best way. But the ultimate thing that we want to know is that how can DDA help you?
Yeah. So firstly, it would be getting it like formally recognized. So whether it be like going through the steps to 513C, and then building a website so like people who want to help, because I don't know how to make a website, people who could make like the coding aspect and then the aesthetic aspect, getting a website done and then spreading the word about what we're trying to do. And then after we get to 501(c), it'd be reaching out and like advocating for what we're trying to do as a Max program to get it to be more like a more socially aware community, and then give it to venues or pitch the idea to other hotels, restaurants, etc., to make the program real. So then going out and like spreading the word, I guess, would be there, and then sort of helping get an organization funded so that if other companies, for instance, I don't know, I think I wrote it here but I skipped over it. Simon Malls is a big mall, mall.
Quite familiar with them. Yeah.
And so they actually reached out to us saying that they wanted their next one in Northern California to be made with autism like infrastructure in mind. So like from that we realized that it was growing to where like we wouldn't have to reach out to them, like they were coming up to us. So if we just spread the word enough and like emphasize the importance of it, then I think other companies would be more willing to want to help out, want to like be included, and then from there it's rather of like going through the motions we've been previously doing and tweaking it to apply to whatever the task is at hand.
So for the most part, you want us to help you formalize the Max program and then help spread the word.
I think once we get it on its feet, then when we spread the word, it'd be more like formal and polished.
Yeah.
So they'd be more willing to
Pay
help
attention
out,
to it.
especially with RDU and my previous two. Then like, there's more of a precedent. So the spreading the word would be more impactful.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money about that, especially with someone as big as the Simon family coming to you about their malls because they own so many. That already essentially your achievements is just gonna draw more of these organizations to you. So that's definitely something to be cognizant of. But especially with RDU, you're gonna be on a bit of a timeline there though, because you have to make it before the infrastructure changes actually happen. Do you know how? Did they tell you how long it would when they need a formalized plan by?
They didn't say. They just said like whenever you have. So we had the meeting minutes. We modified the meeting minutes and they approved them.
Yeah.
And then they wanted the short-term plan and then the long-term plan. So right now, I'm like trying to crank out the short-term plan, and then once that gets set in motion, then they're like hooked on, I guess.
Yeah.
So then they'd be more willing to operate on the long-term plan. But I'm hoping by maybe summer or by the latest, like the first couple weeks of school next year, I could get long-term like ideas
drafted out.
Yeah.
Do you know when they're gonna start knocking walls down?
No, they just said it was scheduled in 2020.
Okay.
So I have some feedback. I'm also a sibling of a person with autism, so I guess I understand like the complexities of voice that you were talking about. Like you brought up the issue of people speaking for people who can't speak for themselves. I actually think it's really important. So my number one feedback for you would be to make sure that you are incorporating the voices of people with autism in getting like feedback on not only from people who work with people with autism, but from people who are autistic. And absolutely can get their input, you know. And I can kind of help you on 3 levels. So there's people at Duke that you can talk to. There's people in the community that I can help connect you to. And then just nationally, I can also give you some names for people to reach out to give like their feedback on the actual plans and like the actual changes that they would have liked to see in spaces and the way that spaces can be accessible to people with all different kinds of mental disabilities. So like I guess afterwards I could just like, we can sit down, I can write you a huge list of names and emails and some people to reach out to. So let's talk after.
Alex, this is amazing.
The fact that you basically did this single-handedly too.
We are really honored to have you here. I personally don't have like any feedback at the moment because I'm just in awe. So, but we would definitely love for you to keep coming back here, and like we would love to help you in any way, shape, or form possible, if anything. What are your thoughts on like starting another task force for this that you obviously would lead? I think that would be a great way to start, and then first just keep coming back, tell us how we can be better, and we can try to help you move forward with this. We also heard about like the fact that RDU is trying to expand, so I think it's really good and strategic and powerful on your part for trying to take advantage of this new infrastructure expansion to kind of like push for this program. I think it's going to be really impactful. So, anyone else have any thoughts? Alexa, Logan. So I want to make sure if anybody, Michaela, Jay, if anybody wants to say something, like please feel free to say something.
If you make a task force, I'll be on your task force.
I might be a good resource for your task force. So I worked with children with autism for 9 years in West Virginia. So I'd be happy to do any type of advocacy.
We can all organize emails and group me numbers, stuff like that after this meeting.
And I'd like to be added to the community center task force.
Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Might be able to do. I'm working for student affairs for the next 2 years. So hopefully maybe I can kind of do a little bit of advocacy in that space.
Good ally to have.
Absolutely.
So before we break apart and kind of sorry, before we
adjourn
and share all the contact info and stuff, I just want to take a moment to highlight our newest exec members, Simran and Logan. I know initially I had said that you guys apply, we'll hold elections, and then you'll decide the rules, but I was thinking back to last year and how we handled exec rules per se, and just kind of going off of your applications and your experiences, I was thinking, and of course everybody else feel free to chime in. Sorry I didn't get a chance to discuss this beforehand, but Simran, I think it'd be great if you were an accessibility chair, just given all of your experience with ASL and how the fact that you're already working with the ASL Club to make Duke more hearing, more accessible for people with hearing disabilities. And Logan, I think you would be great as an advocacy chair, just given the fact that you pretty much single-handedly organize Cure Day of Science at Duke, and be a great way to I think it would be great if you could be the hand on deck for reaching out to other organizations. So, are you guys cool?
Yeah, that's
okay. And honestly, if anyone else is interested in joining the exec board, I know we did and should make this a formal process, but if you want to be more involved and get access to our Google Drive, let me know. We can always make things work. Don't feel deterred that I missed the application, so I can't join. So yeah, if I could get both of your Gmails so I can add you to it, that would be great. And then for the Max Program Task Force. I think for each of the other task force, we made group meets and then I personally am not joining any particular task force just so I can kind of stay involved in all of them, but from a little bit afar. So I will get you guys to the messenger group chat for that. And other than that, any other questions, comments, smart remarks, jokes, complaints about the weather?
That's a complaint.
Yeah.
Can we do a group photo before people leave? I know that's lame, but I'm putting together a slideshow for the
I put up my hair.
TED Talk, and it's like a really great meeting. We've got such good attendance.
I still have chlorine on me.
Like I just
Okay.
got back from Virginia yesterday from a turf match. Like it's not even golden hour anymore.
And we don't have enough pictures anyway.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. People can just stay where they're at and I'll just like
Oh, it's like a candid
do
photo.
like this circle, pretend that you're in the middle of a conversation. Candid.
Candid?
And we take a proper group photo too afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, are we actually supposed to be?
No,
I look like a man. Just imagine I said something stupid.
I know. Like I got some action shots.
That's the whole purpose of Candid.
That's funny.
I just,
Perfect.
I don't know if this would be laughing.
Alright, so let's do this. If everybody is okay with then you guys add your Gmails, but everyone else who's like,
I can
how's
also
the,
use
yeah,
my
the
computer.
best way to
I'm just gonna
share contact info?
I'm just gonna like go down with my computer and grab everybody except for Sam. And just put your name, number, email, and